Welcome everyone to a meeting of the Boston Region Metropolitan Planning Organization. I'm David Moeller. I represent Secretary Monica Tibbetts, not here. You are invited to participate in our transportation planning process, regardless of your race, color, national origin, including limited English proficiency, religion, creed, gender, ancestry, ethnicity, disability, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, veteran status, or background. To read the full notice of your rights and protections, go to www.boston.org/MPO_NO_DISCRIMINATION. Excuse me. This meeting is accessible to people with disabilities. Zoom products are compliant with exceptions with the following standards: Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1 Level AA standards and revised Section 508 standards. If you require any additional accommodations in order to participate fully in this meeting, or if you have any technical difficulties, please contact Abby Katrooms, MPO staff at acutrubes@ctps.org or call at 857-702-3682 or via the chat box. All participants will join the meeting with muted microphones. Please rename yourself to include your first name, last name, and affiliation. After roll call, board members may mute and unmute themselves. Always remain muted unless actively speaking. To participate in the discussion, please select the raise hand function. You can find this by clicking either on the participants button at the bottom of the screen, and a window will pop up with a raise hand button at the bottom, or the reactions button in the toolbar. The chair will then call on participants. If you are on the phone, you can use *9 to raise your hand. Now it is time for introductions. So David, please call the roll.
I will call the roll. Thank you. David Moeller.
I am here.
John Bouchard.
John Bouchard, present.
And I will switch to organization names. Then over to MassDOT Highway Division.
John Romano, MassDOT Highway here.
Perfect. MBTA.
Sandy Johnson, representing General Manager Phil Lang in the MBTA.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Eric Boreassa with MAPC.
Good morning. MBTA Advisory Board. Next, the Advisory Council.
Leonard Diggins, our advisory council here. Thanks.
Thank you. City of Boston, BTD.
Morning, this is Jen Rowe representing the City of Boston and Mayor Michelle Wu.
Good morning. Next, City of Boston Planning Department.
Morning, this is Matt Moran representing the City of Boston, Mayor Wu.
Good morning. At large, City of Everett.
Good morning. Jay Monty, representing Mayor DiMaria and the City of Everett.
Good morning. At large, City of Newton.
Good morning. This is David Kozis representing Mayor Ruth Ann Fuller and the City of Newton.
Good morning. At large, Town of Arlington, please.
Good morning. This is John Alessi representing Select Board Chair Steve DeCourcy in the town of Arlington.
Thank you. At large, Town of Brookline. Perfect. Aaron gave a heads up via email. Inner Core Committee, City of Somerville, please.
Good morning. Tom Bent, City of Somerville in the Inner Core Committee, representing Mayor Katiana Ballantyne.
Good morning.
Good morning. I just want to jump in. I'm sorry. This is Erin Chu, Town of Brookline, dealing with a kind of local issue here today, but I'll be in and out of the meeting. So thank you. Good to be here.
Not a problem, and thank you, Erin. Minuteman Advisory Group on Interlocal Coordination, Town of Acton.
Good morning, Kayla Sauer here representing Fran Arsenal, Chair of the Acton Select Board.
Good morning. Metro West Regional Collaborative, City of Framingham. Next, North Shore Task Force, City of Beverly.
Darlene Nguyen, representing Mayor Michael Cahill for the City of Beverly.
Thank you. North Suburban Planning Council, Town of Burlington.
Good morning, Melissa Tintopoulos, representing Chairman Joe Morandi for the North Urban Planning Council.
Good morning. South Shore Coalition, Town of Hull. Next, Southwest Advisory Planning Committee, Town of Rentham. And now Three Rivers Interlocal Council, Town of Norwood. Yes, Town of Norwood. Okay, moving on to the Federal Highway Administration. Do we have anyone from the Federal Transit Administration?
Hi, yes, Kirsty Tirandazzi, Region 1, representing Peter Butler.
Thank you. Have I missed anyone else for this roll call?
David, I believe the advisory board is entered, so if you could.
Hi,
back.
Anna Swilikowski, MBTA Advisory Board.
Good morning. We'll note that. Is there anyone else? Okay, with that, turn it back to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the chair's report. I do not have one today, so we will go directly to the executive director's report. Kagan.
Okay, thanks, David. And hello, everyone. I just want to set everyone's expectations, kind of like last time. I do actually have some substantive updates in my report. So we'll work through those together. But first, I'd like to start with staffing updates. If you could go to the next slide. So I come to the board today with some bittersweet news. I'm happy that most of my staffing updates have been skewed towards onboarding and hires, and our staffing levels overall have been improving. But I do have 3 new resignations to announce today, which we learned about just in the last few weeks. So before I give the announcement, I'll just say that while resignations are always a loss to the agency, and these certainly are, I do appreciate when we have kind of more friends in more places, and I'm very excited for our colleagues to have new opportunities and sort of be able to collaborate with them and continue our relationship with them in their new roles. So with that caveat, I'll start. Next slide, please. So first, Ronak Basu will be leaving us to take on a role as a professor of transportation planning at Georgia Tech. We are grateful that Ronak was able to start his position at the beginning of the next semester, so that will make his last day with us at the end of the calendar year, December 31st. So if I can just say a few quick things about Ronak. He joined us in July of 2023 as the manager of the Multimodal Planning and Design Group, and he has since been working to focus the work of the team on advancing projects that help us build a safe, sustainable, and accessible regional multimodal transportation system. He also, in his role, successfully led 2 grant applications, the MADI grant and the MVP grant that you've heard about recently. One focused on improving mobility and accessibility for transport insecure communities, and the other focused on how people walking and biking experience dangerous levels of urban heat. So we are already working on a plan for how we will successfully carry out those grants with his departure. We do have quite a bit of time to work with him on that, and we can also continue to collaborate with him in his new capacity at Georgia Tech as well. So second, next slide, please. Sarah Philbrick will be departing us to take on a new challenge with our sister agency, MAPC. In her time with us, Sarah has played a really important role in developing and leading the newly established MPO planning and policy team. And in addition to that managerial role, she's also been a very active participant on our diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility internal working group, and also on the travel demand model steering committee. So what she's really brought to the agency is her insight spanning analysis and planning. And that's just been really valuable, and we're really grateful that she has brought that to our agency, and also that she's not going far. And we're thrilled to coordinate with her in her new role at MAPC, as we do with so many other MAPC staff. Her last day will be November 1st. And then last, next slide, please. Srileka Murthy's last day will be October 23rd. So Srileka has led the development of the UPWP as its program manager since January of 2021. She's also been a part of discrete studies and technical assistance projects. She's provided a lot of support for other MPO planning activities, and she co-led our internal project management working group, which is advancing our agency's strategic goals to build up these skills of the agency. So we're very grateful for Srileka's contributions over these last several years to the work across the agency, and we also wish her well as she moves on to the next chapter of her career. So please congratulate Ronak, Sarah, and Srileka and support their pursuit of these new opportunities. We will be posting for these positions as soon as possible. So please keep an eye out and help us by sharing these excellent opportunities with your own networks. Next slide. So next, I wanted to provide an update to all of you about the annual conference for the Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations. Towards the end of September, we sent 5 staff in addition to myself to attend it. And since that is a significant investment on the part of the MPO, I wanted to talk a little bit about the value of that conference and what we learned. So first, in terms of those who went, we have 2 staff serving on each of AMPO's policy and technical committees, 1 staff on each of those committees. They were able to attend, as well as some other communications and engagement and MPO activities staff. It's a really great way to sort of dive not only into the work that we do as an MPO and sort of learn best practices from each other, but it's also really a unique opportunity for us to connect with MPO state and federal colleagues all across the country. If you go to the next slide, I think this is actually fun. Oh, never mind. I thought I wrote it up here. It's self-described as a place where MPOs converge to ignite innovation and forge powerful connections. And I will say that it was a really impactful year to really get together and build up a common narrative around the importance of and the value of the work that MPOs do. I was also elected to a 2nd term on the AMPO's board of directors, with that term ending in 2027. So I'll be able to continue to both contribute to AMPO as well as sort of benefit from that exposure to my peers on the board. So this shows you some of the sample topics that were covered at the conference. They span from regional roles in public transit planning to developing very high quality core 3C products. And of course, lots of innovation in terms of engagement, technology, and data, among others. There were also 3 really great plenary sessions that I wanted to highlight. The first one was that there was a panel of folks from Utah that really talked a lot about the power of working together. That included the lieutenant governor, the mayors of Salt Lake City and South Jordan, the MPO director, and essentially the secretary of the DOT there, in their case, the executive director of the state. They all sort of talked together about what they've been able to accomplish through the kind of the coordination that they do on projects. And it was really powerful and impactful to listen to. The keynote speaker was the Honorable Shailen Bhatt, having just stepped down from his role of FHWA administrator. So we got to hear some really great insights from him about his role in DC. And then we also received some legal updates in a plenary session on landmark Supreme Court rulings. And we learned some really interesting things about how some of those rulings, like affirmative action, can impact how we're able to approach and do our equity work as an MPO. So really great sessions. And one of my key takeaways from all of that is really that the more that we work together and the more that we practice having hard conversations where we disagree and identifying common goals together, the more we can get done in our region in a way that we know serves community needs and can help us work towards our long-range goals. Next slide. I wanted to touch on this because I also talked about this last year after I attended AMPO. AMPO has been developing their legislative priorities about what they think is most supportive to MPOs continuing the good work they do in the new authorization. So I just wanted to put them up here on a slide to remind you that we talked about these last time in terms of things like increasing the planning funds available to MPOs, reducing local matches for those planning funds, shifting discretionary to formula-based funding for more reliable and predictable funding sources each year, exploring opportunities for direct recipient status for MPOs and locals, and then also the carryover of federal funds being sort of really clear guidance around that. Next slide. So they've updated their policy roadmap document, which has sort of the summary of those primers, and we're going to post the links to these, and we're also happy to send these out because they're very interesting reads. and helps you understand what's happening at the national scale. All of those resources can be found at the page link that you see at the top of this page. In addition to that roadmap update, they also have a primer on the Highway Trust Fund, which is experiencing its own solvency issues and is receiving many one-time transfers from the general fund. And if it is exhausted, it represents a loss of a very fundamental funding stream into our planning funds for the MPO, as well as the federal aid highway program. So that's a big deal. And then also they have a new survey report on the use of discretionary grants and the insights of MPOs working to access those and the challenges and opportunities that we have faced. Next slide. All right, I have two announcements. The first one is please remember to sign the MPO's Memorandum of Understanding. The due date for that is before our next meeting on October 24th. We have most of the signatures we need, so thank you for those of you who have done that, but we still have probably about 6 remaining. So please do be sure to complete your reviews with legal teams and the signatories in the next 2 weeks. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to Lauren McGee or Dave Hong. Next slide. We also would like to announce to all of you the multimodal mobility infrastructure program corridor and intersection studies that have been selected for this federal fiscal year. We've identified 1 corridor and 2 intersections as candidates for the location-specific studies that we do each year, which is particularly a popular program typically with our municipal partners. The selection process looks at safety and congested conditions, multimodal and regional significance, transportation equity and geographical distribution of past studies, and the potential for actually implementing the recommendations from the study. So with that in mind, next slide, we selected the following sites. So for the corridor study, Route 114 in Salem, and for the intersection studies, Commerce Way at Presidential Way and Atlantic Ave in Woburn, and the intersection of Route 1 at High Plains Street in Walpole. So we've been in touch with those municipalities and Mass DOT about these studies, and they've all expressed their interest. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to the contacts we put in the chat, Ronak Basu or Seth Asante. Next slide. Now, finally, onto today's agenda. Thanks for your patience. I know I had a lot to update you on. Today, the key items are 2 amendments to the now new FFY 2025 to 29 TIP. The first one contains various updates, many of which were anticipated and already built into an amendment for our prior TIP. And then there's also some additions of various earmarks and grants. So for Amendment 1, we'll ask the board to release for a public comment period before endorsing. And then Amendment 2 involves programming a small amount of the Austin Multimodal Project Reconnecting Communities grant that's already been awarded to the project. In this case, the board will be requested to waive the public comment period and endorse, but we will talk more about that. And then there'll be an action item to provide mapping support to the MBTA. This is the next scope and sort of ongoing work we have done over many years to provide mapping support to the MBTA. And Ken Dumas will talk about that. Next slide, please. Today, we will also get an update from Eric Barratha, MAPC, on the election nominations. They closed this past Monday, and Eric will share the latest on the nominations we've received and the timeline for next steps. We will also have a presentation on the operations plan. This document has been updated sort of in tandem with the MOU updates that we've been working on, and Dave Hong will walk you through at a high level some of the revisions made to the documents so that you can think about that and have awareness before we ask for your approval at the next MPO meeting. And then lastly, Ken Miller, our FHWA representative, will talk about federal highway grant recipients. Next slide. And then just a reminder, we'll have the next meeting on October 24th at 10 a.m. This is different than our usual first and third schedule, so please make sure that's in your calendar. And then the very next meeting will not be until November 14th at 10 a.m. and that will be hybrid in person, and that will be our annual meeting. And with that, Mr. Chair, I think I am finally done.
Thank you, Tegan. Questions for Tegan? Lynn?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. So thanks for your announcements, Madam Chair, Madam Executive Director. Regarding the multimodal studies, could you discuss a little bit more about how they were selected and the pool from which they were selected, because we used to discuss these a little bit more as part of the UPWP committee, and maybe we can have that discussion again in a UPWP committee meeting. But still, I think it'd be good for the entire board to get a sense of the nature of the pool and a little more about how these particular studies were selected.
Yeah, thanks, Ron. That's a great question. And actually, I will defer. Ronak's here at the meeting. I believe he's ready, or Seth actually is also here and is ready to talk about that a little bit more. So if I can, Mr. Chair, I'd like to turn it over to Seth.
Of course.
You're muted, Seth.
Thanks, Leonard, for your question. We have prepared a memo and we're going to make them accessible and post them so you can have more details about the selection process. But for the corridors, we have a list of corridors that we looked at, and we look at safety and all the criteria that Tegan mentioned. For the Route 114 corridor study in Salem, it scored highly on high crash rates and also high incidence of pedestrian and bicycle crashes. Also, the corridor serves the Salem State University, the MBTA commuter rail station in Salem. And the corridor is also surrounded by dense residential and commercial development. So there were pedestrian issues that we looked at and also bicycle issues. And we will be working with the city of Salem to look at these issues. For the other two intersections also, there were high crash locations. And all the two intersections were also clusters in the top 200 high crash locations in Massachusetts. So they had safety and operations problems. And as part of these studies, we'll be looking at safety, mobility, and operations problem, and also impact on users.
Thank you, Seth.
Thank you. Thank you. I look forward to the memo. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Any other questions for Tegan? Seeing none, next item on the agenda is our public comments. Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment at this time? Hold on while I find who's raised their hands. Has anybody got their hands up? I don't think so.
I can see Jared Johnson's got his hand up.
Oh, thank you, because I can't see him on my screen. Jared, whenever you're ready.
Right. Hello, thank you. My name is Jared Johnson, Executive Director of Transit Matters. And I wanted to comment about the amendment for the Austin Multimodal Project, and especially the request to waive the comment period. I do want to note that to me it feels unprecedented to have a $2 billion project added to the capital plan at the last minute. I do understand that the grant that was recently received has some timeline limitations, but I really feel like there's some pretty big issues that are still unresolved, and I'll point to the very serious community concerns with the exact elements that the federal grant pertains to, as well as the total lack of clarity, funds, or effort being put into MBTA service, which should be serving as a mitigation tool. And so I really think this deserves more comment and should not be rushed through. Again, I understand that there is an urgency with the grant, but we have some very, very serious issues with a number of elements of this project, whether it is station design, issues with layover, how the MBTA is going to allow service with the Grand Junction out, the width of the People's Pipe. I mean, I could be here all day bringing up the issues, and so again, I really think that this deserves more attention and should not be rushed through. I don't see why this cannot be a part of next year's capital plan, so that there can be adequate time to discuss this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. And if you have an additional comment as we're discussing the amendment, please feel free to raise your hand and we will take you then too. Any other comments at this time? Seeing none, as always, if you have a comment during the meeting, raise your hand and we will try to call on you. Next item on the agenda is committee chairs reports. Are there any? Jim Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And happy new federal fiscal year to everyone. MPO staff wasted no time emailing TIP contacts about the kickoff of the upcoming federal fiscal year 26 to 30 TIP development. That kickoff will take place at our upcoming TIP Process Engagement and Readiness Committee, which is scheduled for a week from now on Thursday, October 17th. This will, again, I mentioned that will be the kickoff. Ethan will talk us through some of the key anticipated dates in TIP development, and also speak to some of the items that came up in the last cycle that and whether we're thinking they might return and how we want to be thinking about those going forward. So I welcome and encourage anyone who's interested to attend next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Any questions for Jen? Seeing none. Any other committee chairs reports at this time? Okay, the next item on our agenda is the Regional Transportation Advisory Council report. Lynn Diggins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hey, we had a good meeting yesterday, and our next meeting is going to be hybrid. I don't know if we determine a location. Perhaps our executive director could tell us that. I'm presuming it's going to be at 10 Park Plaza and probably in some of the CTPS facilities. But there'll be more on that, I'm sure, before. And what the next planned that date, which as of now is going to be planned for our regularly scheduled meeting time, the second Wednesday of the month. But that may change too, so stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Any questions for Lynn? Seeing none, next item on the agenda is the MPO minutes from August 1st, 2024. Can I get a motion and a second to adopt the minutes, and please state your name for the record when making the motion? Eric Barassa.
Eric Barassa, I'll make a motion to approve the August 1st meeting minutes.
Thank you. John Alessi.
I will second that motion.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Any comments, changes, questions, or suggestions? Seeing and hearing none, please call the roll.
David Moeller,
Yes.
John Bouchard. We're just admitting him back into the room. John Romano,
John Romano, yes.
John Bouchard, we were just voting on the meeting minutes. We could get a vote. I will return back.
John Bouchard votes yes. Sorry, I got rebooted. Apology.
Happens, not a problem. Thank you. Next is Sandy Johnston.
Sandy Johnston, yes.
Thank you. Eric Barassa.
Eric Barassa, yes.
Hannah Swidlikowski.
Hannah Swidlikowski, yes.
Len Diggins.
Diggins, yes.
Jen Rowe.
Jen Rowe, yes.
Matt Moran.
Matt Moran, yes.
Jay Monty.
Jay Monty, yes.
David Kozis.
David Kozis, yes.
John Alessi.
John Alessi, yes.
That Aaron Shute is on the road, but if you're online, Aaron Shute.
Got it. Yep. Aaron Shute, yes.
Thank you very much. Tom Bent.
Tom Bent, yes.
Kayla Sauer.
Kayla Sauer, yes.
Darlene Wynn.
Darlene Wynn, yes.
Melissa Tentopoulos.
Melissa Tentopoulos, yes.
Are there any members that I have not called for this role?
Yes, this is Dennis Chiambetti. I recently joined, and yes.
Thank you, Dennis. Anyone else? That motion carries. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dave. Next item on the agenda is tip amendment number 1. Ethan Lapointe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everybody. My name is Ethan Lapointe. I am the Transportation Improvement Program Manager for the Boston Region MPO. My first presentation here today is Amendment 1 to the recently enacted with the new federal fiscal year 2025 to 29 TIP. We can move on to the next slide and the one after that. There's quite a few actions within Amendment 1 proposed here today. It includes changes mostly to the federal fiscal year's 2025 earmark discretionary and also changes within the regional target programs. Many of the changes that fall within this amendment are reiterations of Amendment 13 of the federal fiscal year's 2024 to 28 TIP, which included the delay of the Peabody Independence Greenway project and 2 MPO-funded MBTA transit improvement projects into federal fiscal year 2025. I'd note that when the board voted on Amendment 13, the public comment period for Amendment 13 was waived, given the time sensitivity then. With the new federal fiscal year and this amendment, there's now a time for that full 21-day public comment period for those actions. In addition to the items that were included within Amendment 13, we're also going to be requesting a reprogramming of some earmarks that were previously programmed within federal fiscal year 2024, and also some discretionary grants from federal fiscal year 2024 as well that were not obligated during that year. If we can go on to the next slide, in addition to some of these returning items, there are also some new federal discretionary grant awards under the federal Safe Streets and Roads for All, and also charging and fueling infrastructure programs that are going to be programmed within federal fiscal year 2025. And then for the last amendment-related item here, there's also the delay of a project from federal fiscal year 25 of the regional target program into federal fiscal year 2026, which I'll expand upon later in this presentation. And while these items don't necessarily raise the level of an amendment, we're also taking the opportunity to use Amendment 1 to undertake some corrections to text and add additional information throughout Chapter 3 of the TIP document, namely regarding some inconsistencies and omitted project pages between different document versions and other incorrect data. This would normally be constituted as an administrative adjustment, but we're just taking the opportunity here today that once Amendment 1 is enacted, there will be a new document posted that also reflects some of these new projects and some of these more clerical adjustments and changes. We can go on to the next slide and the one after that, starting off in federal fiscal year 2025 for the earmark discretionary program. And on to the next slide. These first 3 projects listed here are returning earmarks that have been previously programmed in earlier TIPs, starting with the Mystic River Path to Minuteman Bikeway Connection Design project within the town of Arlington, which reprograms a $1 million earmark with $250,000 in match. In Belmont, for their community path design, there's similarly a $1 million federal earmark with $250,000 in match being proposed for reprogramming in this new TIP. And in Cambridge, a earmark for the separated bicycle lane on Steele Place in the amount of $958,217 of federal funding with $239,555 in match. Moving on to the next slide, there are also returning earmarks, 3 of them for the Border to Boston trail design for the communities of Marblehead, Peabody, and Salem. This includes $140,000 with $35,000 in match for the town of Marblehead, and $300,000 of federal funding and $75,000 for both Peabody and also the city of Salem as well for their sections to design the Border to Boston Trail. And moving on to the next slide for the last 2 returning earmarks from federal fiscal year 24 into 2025. The next is the Dover and Needham Center Street and Central Avenue Bridge Engineering and Design earmark for $2 million with $500,000 in match, and also the Broad Street Corridor Transit Signal Priority earmark, which includes a $275,000 federal earmark for transit signal priority efforts on Broad Street in Lynn, which it should be noted this is a portion of the total funding of the project, as the MPO had also previously funded part of the project in federal fiscal year 2024 through the Community Connections program. And moving on to the next slide, we have both a new grant and the reprogramming of a previous Reconnected Communities and Neighborhoods grant. This new grant is the City of Boston's Recharge Boston EV Charging grant program, which is awarded through the Charging and Fueling Infrastructure, or CFI, discretionary grant program. This is an award in the amount of $15 million with $3,750,000 in matching funds. There is also a previously awarded discretionary grant award through the Reconnected Communities and Neighborhoods program for the city of Cambridge to design a bicycle pedestrian crossing over the Fitchburg MBTA commuter rail line at Danahy Park. And again, this discretionary grant award was previously amended onto the federal fiscal years 24 to 28 tip, but was not obligated, so it is being reprogrammed here. And moving on to the next slide, these are all three new Safe Streets and Roads for All grant awards. The first being for the city of Boston for the East Boston Safe Streets and Roads for All improvements, which is an award in the amount of $2,832,532 with matching funding also incorporated for a series of corridor pairs to be improved throughout the neighborhood of East Boston within the city of Boston. There's also an award for the city of Lynn for their Safe Streets Projects effort, which is a $9,586,000 project with associated matching funding to address a series of corridors throughout the city of Lynn. And last but not least is the city of Peabody for the Linfield Street Corridor Safety Demonstration Project in the amount of $223,600 with $55,840 in matching funds. To reiterate, these are three new federal discretionary grant awards being reflected here in this amendment. We can move on to the next slide. We then have our federal fiscal year 2025 regional target program changes. This next item is a new item, which is the Woburn and Burlington intersection reconstruction at Route 3 Cambridge Road and Bedford Road and South Bedford Street project. This project is being proposed for a delay out of federal fiscal year 2025. Its current budget is $3,438,311. As part of this amendment, it is not being proposed for reprogramming within this tip within federal fiscal year 2026. The reason for the delay is that there is now an anticipated advertisement date for this project within February 2026. However, there is insufficient regional target funding within federal fiscal year 2026 under this current tip to reprogram it in that year. The project, as we move to develop the federal fiscal years 2026 to 30 tip, may be reprogrammed as part of that project development process. If we can move on to the next slide, we then have the items I mentioned earlier that were included within Amendment 13 to the federal fiscal years 24 to 28 tip. This reflects a delay of Peabody's Independence Greenway Extension project out of federal fiscal year 2024 into 2025, retaining the same budget, which was the result of critical utility improvements underneath the limits of the project that necessitated this delay back. The city of Peabody has also expressed that it will be available over the coming months to provide updates to MPO members on the status of this project as it advances. The budget still remains at $8,273,695. This is a net zero change between the other regional target projects that are listed here, as these next two projects include a reduction in the budget in federal fiscal year 2025 for the Jackson Square Station Accessibility Improvements Project, a reduction in the amount of $3,524,204, as that project had increased in federal fiscal year 2024 by that same amount. And similarly for the Columbus Avenue Bus Lanes project, its federal fiscal year 2025 budget is proposed for a reduction from $7,500,000 to $2,750,509, a reduction of about $4.75 million, which is similar to the increase that was seen in federal fiscal year 2024 of the previous tip. So again, between these three items, there is no change to the federal fiscal year 2025 regional target allocation remaining. So if we can move on to the next slide, please. MPO staff are requesting that the MPO board votes to release Amendment 1 for a 21-day public comment period today, which would commence on Monday, October 14th, and end on November 4th at 5 p.m. With that, I'm happy to field any questions.
Thank you, Ethan. Questions for Ethan? Ken Miller.
Thank you, David. Just a question about some of the discretionary grants. It doesn't appear that all of the new ones are included. I'll just mention a couple. Quincy, Safe Streets for All. Boston and Chelsea, greening Chelsea. That's a neighborhoods accessibility one. And then if somebody can tell me if the Norwood electric vehicle charging RA grant has been programmed, is already programmed. Well, maybe, I don't know, maybe these are already in the tip, if somebody can tell me.
Ethan?
The projects that are included that are new discretionary grant awards here were the result of projects that, in consultation and outreach to the award municipalities, those municipalities had expressed that they wanted them programmed as part of this amendment. This is not the totality of all federal discretionary grants that could have been programmed. It's just what the municipalities had advocated for inclusion.
I see. Okay, thank you. But okay, I think at some point maybe we can have a discussion about whether we should just automatically put these in there. But I understand that. And just a request too, if when you talk about earmarks, if you can actually put the earmark ID in there, it would be helpful to me to know what, because there are some projects that got multiple earmarks, and it would be good to know which one you're actually referring to.
Thank you, Clint.
Thank you.
Lynn?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you can tell, I'm hesitating to ask these questions.
Oh, no, and go ahead.
This was pretty basic, so when you say it's programmed but not obligated, I feel that I should understand that, but I guess I'm just kind of missing something basic, because if we programmed it in the last year and we're obligated it this year, but it's affecting this current tip, what am I can hardly even formulate the question, but maybe you can just explain to me the difference between programming and obligating.
I can speak a little bit to that. Obligation would occur after the project is programmed. What is functionally happening here is that these projects were previously programmed in a prior tip, but did not advertise during that period. So they're functionally being delayed back. Or rather, the advertisement of these grants is being delayed back into a later year.
Okay, I understand delay. Okay, thank you very much. And another question is a little more general, but it's based on something that was mentioned when Tegan spoke earlier. So we have a bunch of discretionary grants here. Are those the type of grants that the AMPO is thinking that we should change from discretionary to formula?
Tegan, you want to handle that one?
Yeah, so it depends is the answer. So there are some discretionary grant opportunities that they feel are well positioned to shift into formula funding. And like one of the areas that they've been thinking about is in the Safe Streets and Roads for All space. We're getting these very big influxes of funding to do these regional action plans and then implement some things, but an ongoing stream of funding focused on this area could really benefit MPOs from having like consistent ongoing work related to Vision Zero and safety. So it's nuanced. It kind of, some of them really make sense as discretionary grants, and some of them make sense to consider making into kind of consistent streams of funding, just from the MPO perspective.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions for Ethan? Hey, Ethan, I have a quick question. So if I followed this, two projects got delayed that were non-discretionary projects. The Burlington one and the Peabody Bike Trail, I forget what it's called, Independence Greenway. We determined that we could fund Peabody Independence Greenway, but not Burlington. But theoretically, we could have chosen either one. And I was wondering, like, I don't think that we should fund the Greenway first. I'm fine with the actual decision, but like, how was that decision made?
With regard to the Peabody Independence Greenway project, that project was in federal fiscal year 2024 initially, and we were able to address that as part of Amendment 13 of that tip. The information regarding the delay for the Woburn and Burlington intersection project was indicated only after that action had taken place. The other item with regard to the 2024 item was that there was regional target funding available that could be reallocated between years on transit projects, which was not the case for this Woburn project. The amount of regional target available in federal fiscal year 2026 to accommodate delays or cost increases at this time is around $700,000, given the about $3.4 million of budget on the Woburn project, and that there were no large-scale transit projects with AC funding between federal fiscal years 25 and 26. The circumstances were different between the two there.
Okay, so if I understand what you said, basically, the MPO already made this decision when we did Amendment 13, and now we're just reflecting it in the current tip.
Yes, for the Peabody project and the other two MBTA transit projects.
Okay, excellent. Thanks for the answer. Any other questions? Seeing and hearing none, can I get a motion and a second to release this for a 21-day public comment period? And please state your name for the record when making the motion. Eric Barassa.
Eric Barassa, I'll make a motion to release this for the public comment period.
Thank you. Jen Rowe.
Would like to second that motion.
Thank you. Motion having been made and seconded, please call the roll.
I'll begin with David Muller,
Yes.
John Bouchard,
John Bouchard, yes.
John Romano,
John Romano, yes.
Sandy Johnston,
Sandy Johnson, yes, with some serious thanks to Ethan and other MPO staff for helping us at the team navigate all of the T-related complexities with these projects.
again, Eric Barassa,
Eric Barassa, yes.
Hannah Switlikowski,
Hannah Switlikowski, yes.
Len Diggins,
Diggins, yes.
Jen Rowe,
Jen Rowe, yes.
Matt Moran,
Matt Moran, yes.
Jay Monty,
Jay Monty, yes.
David Kozis,
David Kozis, yes.
John Alessi,
John Alessi, yes.
Aaron Shute, Tom Bent,
Tom Bent, yes.
Kayla Sauer,
Kayla Sauer, yes.
Dennis Giambetti,
Dennis Giambetti, yes.
Darlene Nguyen,
Darlene Nguyen, yes.
Melissa Tantakis.
Melissa Tantakis, yes.
Have I missed anyone on the roll call? This motion carries. Thank you, and back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dave. Next item on the amendment agenda is amendment number 2, Ethan Lapointe.
Right, for the next item for the federal fiscal years 2025 to 2029 tip, this item is Amendment 2. If we can move on to the next slide and the one after that. Amendment 2 includes one item for consideration, which is the programming of a portion of a federal fiscal years 2023 Reconnected Communities and Neighborhood Grants for early action items within the larger I-90 Alston multimodal project. Specifically, this is $10.3 million of the $335.3 million grant award. It is not the entirety of the award to be programmed within the federal fiscal years 2025 earmark discretionary program. Moving on to the next slide here, just to describe this change. This line item is being proposed to program funding needed for early action items, specifically items related to utility relocations, preliminary engineering, and namely with regard to the elements associated with the Cambridge Street Bridge portion of the project. Specifically, the Cambridge Street Bridge project was an item that was previously incorporated within the federal fiscal years 2023 to 27 STIP within the statewide highway section, but was relocated during an amendment in January 2023 to be incorporated and bundled into this effort in the broader CIP. The total project cost, as reflected in this amendment here, is $1.9 billion for the project. And again, this is a smaller part of a $335.3 million grant awarded from the United States Department of Transportation through that federal fiscal year 2023 Reconnecting Communities and Neighborhoods grant program. Again, this is not the entirety of the grant. We can move on to the next slide. The public comment period for this amendment is proposed for a waiver. MassDOT is requesting that public comment period be waived in order to accommodate certain timelines around the project and is available to provide further explanation on this action item.
Thank you, Ethan. Questions? Jen Rowe.
Yeah, thank you. Oops, sorry. I'll turn that off. So I guess, like, of course, the city of Boston, understands how important and potentially transformative this project is. We very much have appreciated working together with MassDOT and the task force to kind of make sure we're getting everything right and really realizing the possibilities to their best. I guess my question is, one, if you could speak a little bit to the use of these funds in fiscal 25 as early action items, and two, if you could describe a little bit around the reason the public comment waiver is being requested and what's the timeline there that's forcing that. Because I guess I feel, as you know, I worked at for MPO staff as part of their public engagement program. I feel quite strongly about the importance of giving the public an opportunity to understand and react, and for us to then be able to hear that feedback and have it inform our decisions.
Yes, as do we. So first off, on the public comment process, before I talk about the reason, the Boston MPO has I'm just going to say, I find it strange, has a strange public process that does not allow for a shortened public process. If we could have a 14-day public process and get this amendment voted on at the next meeting, we would have proposed a 14-day public process in lieu of the 21 days. The Boston MPO's procedures don't allow for that. They allow for you to waive the public process and have none, or they require you to have this full 21 days. Okay, so that's the first point. Like, if we could, we originally proposed doing this in a 14-day process instead of a 21-day process. The MPO staff, to their credit, came back and said, hey, our procedures don't allow that. You either have to waive the process or take the full 21 days. So to stay on this topic, the reason we want to do this now is it is important to us to show progress, both to our federal partners and to the people who care about this project. It is a very limited amendment, as Ethan has pointed out. It's $10.3 million, which if you do the math, that's really like $8 million of federal money of the $335 million. But we really want people in the federal process to understand we are committed to this project. We are moving this project forward. This project isn't languishing. Yes, it's taking a long time because there's a lot of unresolved issues, but the project is moving forward, and we want people to understand that we are committed to moving this project forward. Okay. Now, what this money will be used for? This is well, I think Ethan sort of said it's preliminary design, it's utility relocation, and it's possibly right-of-way, specifically related to the Cambridge Street Bridge, which is farther along in the process than the rest of Alston because it was a separate project. It is now part of the Alston project, and it won't proceed to construction until the full Alston project has cleared MEPA and NEPA, et cetera. Okay, but we would like to move portions of it along as we can, again, to show some progress on this project. And to Jared's point earlier, there's a lot of issues still to be resolved. We all understand that this is not an attempt to somehow backdoor that. None of this is related to where's West Station going to be relocated, what's West Station's size, are you doing layover tracks, how many bypass tracks do you need? None of that will be implicated by this at all. This is all specifically related to the Cambridge Street Bridge project, which is now, consistent with the request of the city and the community, part of the overall Alston project. And I hope I answered your questions. Matt Moran.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll echo what Jen was saying about really appreciate the collaboration on this project and sort of the work that you all have done to advance it and coordinate with us during this time. I guess just echoing some of what Jen said around the public process, I think we understand this project needs to move, but obviously having a public review and some public comment throughout the process could be important and relevant. So I wanted to ask, would it be potentially amenable to you, Mr. Chair, or to the committee to ask for a delay until 11/14? It would give time for that 21-day public comment. It would give time for the public to weigh in, for members of this board to give some additional comments, and potentially begin to address some of those transit specific issues that are lingering out there. We know we're not going to finalize them, but we still think that they need a little bit more input before proceeding.
Right, so obviously, our proposal is not to do that, okay? Our proposal is to show progress and get this done, now. The MPO can take whatever position it deemed appropriate. We understand that, okay? It is what it is. The delay till November will not resolve any of the outstanding issues, okay? I can just say that flat out. We are not going to resolve those issues by November 14th. That doesn't, there may still be reasons why people want to I don't mean to, I was about to say delay, but I don't want to say delay, to maintain the public process, the public 21 days, that MPO members will have to take their own decision on that. But you shouldn't do it in the expectation that we'll come back on the 14th and have solved all of the problems that have plagued us for, I've been working on this project since the Patrick administration. So hope at some point we will be done and we will have solved all these issues, but it won't be by the 14th of November. Eric Barassa.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, for these points and explanations. I get the sense that, there is a desire to get, a portion of this project obligated, to show commitment. There is always the potential with administrative change that priorities, change. And so I think, I think I'm getting the sense that there's a strong desire to show this commitment. Once you obligate a little piece of it, it shows commitment for the whole amount. And I think that makes sense. I'm happy to support waiving the public comment period. I think in replace of that, or maybe not necessarily in replace, I think it would be great if at a future meeting we could get an update on the Alston project. I agree with you that there's a lot of still questions about the planning and design that are happening right now. I know that the project managers created some additional committees as part of the task force to kind of dig into various aspects of the project. And yeah, there's a lot going on, but I think it'd be great if we could get an update at some point, even if we don't have all the issues resolved, for an opportunity for members to just get updated on this, as we know this is going to be a major regional, project in the future. So I would say maybe that's something we can consider for a future agenda topic.
Thank you, Eric. So yeah, we can do that. You and I, when we get together and talk about agenda setting, can pick the appropriate date. I mean, it won't be the 14th of November because that's our annual meeting. We already have set an agenda based on polling of people. But if people want to do it, the next meeting after that, or if they want to wait till December, or they want to try to cram it into the agenda for 2 weeks from now, we are happy to do that as the MPO deems appropriate at whatever schedule the MPO chooses. Thanks, Eric. Leonard Diggins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I agree with Eric. And I understand the position. That you're taking with respect to waiving the public comment period. As a person who likes and supports public comments, as we all do, I like to try to figure out a way to work make us more flexible. And in terms of thinking that a little bit, and hopefully I'm not too much out of scope, but just to make sure that we would have the appropriate amount of time. I'm thinking it probably need to be like a 10-day period, because normally we don't put the announcement out until a day or two after the meeting. Meaning then we probably want to have those comments in a day or two before for the meeting. And so as we think about maybe adjusting, our public comment period might want to aim for some flexibility that makes it takes it down to 10 days. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn, and I would second that. I think it, Eric and I will work with taking on this. At some point, I think the MPO should think about whether it's appropriate to amend our public process to allow for a shortened review period as opposed to it's either 21 days or nothing. But that's a discussion for a future day. But thank you so much, Lynn.
And one other quick thing, we can also encourage people to come to our next meeting and make comments, during the public comment period, and even when we bring this topic back up on the next agenda. So, because we're very open to that, even if it makes our meetings 3 hours. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Tom Bent.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say, where I understand your explanation as to why you need to do this. Just concerning, and I do agree with my colleagues from Boston and others, about transparency and giving the public the right to comment on these issues. And then updating the MOU, and now today we will be talking about the operations plan. It might be a good time to propose that either 14 or 10-day period, because I just don't remember in recent history anyone asking for that. I know we went from a 30-day to a 21-day, but I don't remember anyone asking for a shorter period, which for certain items that come up make perfect sense. But I think what we try to do is be as open and transparent as possible. And I agree with Eric 100% that we really need to get updated on this project. It's a massive project, and we really haven't had much information on it. So I would definitely want to see that also. But just my comments on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Ken?
Thank you, David. I just want to weigh in, and I appreciate the state's support for moving this forward. We also support moving this forward in an expedited fashion. Like David said, this project, is a very important project to the region, very important project to the US DOT, because obviously we've approved the grant, the Reconnecting Communities grant, and so. And to some other comments about the design yet, this project, even though we've been working on it a long time, for some of us, 10 years or so, members on the task force, and we are getting into some very detailed discussions about, design, very important design issues, and a lot of them have been resolved over time. And we appreciate MassDOT's, flexibility on that. But we are still early haven't even started the design process. Actually, we are still in preliminary design, and MassDOT has yet to issue go through the process of issuing a contract for, final design. And there's still a couple of years worth of design process to be going through. So a lot, we should all keep the task force is still working. All the work, there are 4 work groups that are addressing, particular issues. But there's still plenty of opportunity, like David said, to weigh in on various aspects of the design. And I just want to mention about, the grant agreement. These grant agreements, these grant programs have certain deadlines about when funds can be obligated and things like that, and the construction for the overall project, we have to complete the EIS to be able to obligate those funds. These funds, this is preliminary design funds. These can be obligated prior to the completion of NEPA. That's why this is what this funding is being devoted to, this preliminary design. doesn't require us to complete the EIS. So like David says, this is showing, progress. It's showing progress not only to the region, but also to folks around the country, because this is a high-profile project, and we would really appreciate the MPO's indulgence to move this in an expedited fashion. I'm a big supporter of public process and having the public weigh in general, and I certainly never want to stand in the way of that. But we would really appreciate the MPO support on getting this done in an expedited fashion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions at this time? Jane Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, thank you for the additional kind of information about the kind of the reasons why the expedited process being requested, both from you and Ken. It's helpful and helpful also to understand that this is for preliminary design. I guess I was wondering if I could maybe share a proposal and ask if this would be kind of amenable to the timelines that that you and Ken are under, and that is that given that the operations plan does not allow us the to shorten the public comment period, it does note that if relevant information is not available to 48 hours before the vote, that we may request to kind of postpone the vote out until the next meeting. And so kind of in lieu of having a official public comment period, I wonder if that may be an action we could take under the operations plan to kind of allow board members and the public to review the information we've learned today and ask any other questions they may have before we actually take the vote on it on the 24th.
So I think the answer is it's a qualified yes, right? As long as staff is satisfied that we can table this today and then take it up at the next meeting for adoption, that still meets our timeline. Like I said, if we could have done a 14-day public process, we'd have put it out for 40 days. This is sort of I think a backdoor maneuver to accomplish that. And so if it can be accomplished that way, yes, we are not trying to have no public process. What we're trying to do is get this adopted expeditiously. If we can get it adopted at the next meeting, yes, that would be fine with us. I just need somebody from staff to tell me, yeah, we can actually do that, and then people can make whatever motion they would like. Jay Monty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I see both sides of the coin here, and I'm certainly sympathetic to the desire to move this forward. And I'm also, I think, I'm sympathetic to concerns from Boston and other folks about wanting an update. Jen, I really appreciate your solution here, your potential solution. I think that's a great way to move forward. I fully support that. And if we do come to the next meeting and there's some more discussion on this project, one piece of the puzzle that's missing, I think today, is some input from the T in terms of their role. I realize the funding is for the Cambridge Street Bridge, but I think I just want to hear a little bit from the T where they stand on this too. So hopefully there's a solution here at hand, and if we go forward with Jen's idea, I'm fully supportive of that.
Thank you, Jay. Before I go to you, Ethan, Sandy?
Yeah, really quickly, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to respond to Jay, I am not an expert on this project, far from it, but I'm happy to work with the chair, or vice chair, whoever else is in the room. If we would like the T to come and give a little bit of our perspective, I'm sure that can be arranged.
Thanks, Eddie. Ethan?
With regard to moving the vote on Amendment 2 to October 24th at that meeting, staff could accommodate that.
Okay. All right, so I need any other comments or questions at this time? Seeing none, I need a motion either to approve this, and we can just take an up or down vote, or a motion, I believe, to table this to a time certain 2 weeks from today. Does anybody want to make a motion? If so, raise your hand. Jay Monty, please state your name for the record, Jay, even though I just
Jay
did.
Monte, I'll make the motion to postpone this to the October 24th meeting.
Thank you. John Alessi.
This is John Alessi. I'll second that motion.
Motion having been made and seconded, please call the roll.
David Moeller,
Yes.
John Bouchard,
John Bouchard, yes.
John Romano,
John Romano, yes.
Sandy Johnston,
Sandy Johnston, yes.
Eric Barassa,
Eric Barassa, yes.
Anna Swift-Lukowski,
Yes.
Len Diggins,
Diggins, yes.
Jen Rowe,
Jen Rowe, yes.
Matt Moran,
Moran, yes.
Jay Monty,
Jay Monte, yes.
David Kozes,
David Kozis, yes.
John Alessi,
John Alessi, yes.
Aaron Shute,
Aaron Chute, yes.
Tom Bett,
Tom Bett, yes.
Kayla Sauer,
Kayla Sauer, yes.
Dennis Giambetti,
Dennis Chiambetti, yes.
Darlene Wynn,
Darlene Nguyen, yes.
Melissa Tantaklis,
Melissa Tintaklis, yes.
could I just get a reminder as to who motioned and seconded this?
It was motioned by Jay Monty and seconded by John Alessi.
Thank you so much. And let me just look. This motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, everyone. Next item on the agenda is an action item on a work scope for MBTA map support. Ken Dumas.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, my name is Ken Dumas. I am the manager of the graphics and cartography team at CTPS, and I'm putting forth a work scope to continue doing MBTA map support. The graphics team for many, many years has been updating on a quarterly basis the MBTA system map and their bus schedule maps. This is a 3-year work scope, which will allow this work to continue. It's a total cost of $18,000 with an expenditure of no more than $6,000 per year. Let me know if there are any questions.
Thank you, Ken. Questions for Ken? David Kozis.
Yeah, and thank you, Ken, for always doing such great work. So, with bus network redesign, we'll be seeing a lot of bus route changes and the schedule changes and all the maps that we just heard about that are going to go into the bus shelters. I don't know, it seems like a lot of new mapping work, and it seems like a really tiny little budget for this work. So I guess I'm just wondering, is it really enough, do you think, or are there other people or resources also at play doing similar work? Thank you.
Sure. So thank you. That's an excellent question. So actually, there is a separate funding source for a separate project that our team is working on as well. And essentially, the bus network redesign is being done separately. So any changes to these maps for bus network redesign are either have been done for phase 1, and there'll be further scopes for the future phases as we go forward. This particular scope is for regular ongoing maintenance to things unrelated to things like bus network redesign. So, for example, if a bus route had a temporary routing change, or they decided to, reroute a bus permanently, but it's unrelated to the bus network redesign, these are the kind of updates that this particular scope will cover. And that's why it doesn't seem like it's a lot of funding, because it's not. It's really just designed for regular routine and maintenance on a quarterly basis, because usually these changes each quarter are quite small.
Thank you, Ken. Other questions? Seeing none, can I please get a motion in a second to approve this as presented today? State your name for the record. Eric Barassa.
Eric Barassa, I make a motion to approve this work scope as presented today.
Thank you. Lynn Diggins.
Diggins, seconds.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. David, please call the roll.
David Muller,
Yes.
John Bouchard, John Romano,
John Romano, yes.
Sandy Johnston,
Sandy Johnston, yes.
John Bouchard, yes, David, sorry.
not a problem, thank you. Eric Barassa,
Eric Barassa, yes.
Hannes Witlikowski, Colin Hannigan. Next to Len Diggins,
Diggins, yes.
Jen Rowe,
Jen Rowe, yes.
Matt Moran,
Matt Moran, yes.
Jay Monty,
Jay Monty, yes.
David Kozis,
David Kozis, yes.
John Alessi,
John Alessi, yes.
Aaron Shute,
Aaron Shute, yes.
Tom Bent,
Tom Bent, yes.
Kayla Sauer,
Kayla Sauer, yes.
Dennis Giambetti,
Dennis Giambetti, yes.
Darlene Wynn,
Darlene Wynn, yes.
Melissa Tentaklis.
Melissa T, yes.
Have I missed anyone?
Hi, Hannah Swilikowski. Sorry, I had to step away. Hannah Swilikowski, yes.
Perfect, thank you. And with that, the motion for the work scope approval passes. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dave. Next item on the agenda is an update on the board election nomination process. Eric Barassa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the nominations are in. They closed on Monday. And we have 4 seats up for election. We have the at-large city seat, the at-large town seat, the Three Rivers Interlocal Council seat, and the North Suburban Planning Council seat. Can you go to the slide? Did you prepare one? Let's see. If not, yes, here we go. So the at-large city seat is a contested race. We have both the city of Newton and the city of Chelsea running for this seat. The at-large town seat is just the town of Arlington running unopposed. The Three Rivers Interlocal Council seat is just the town of Norwood running unopposed. And the North Suburban Planning Council is the town of Burlington running unopposed. So because we have a contested election, we are going to have a candidates forum next week. It will be a virtual candidates forum over Zoom on October 17th at 3 p.m. You're welcome to attend. Anyone is welcome to attend. We're going to record that, and then afterwards we will email that out to the chief executive officials of the municipalities who are the electorate for the municipal election process. We're going to create the ballots. I'm in the process of getting those created. We're going to get those out by next week, by Tuesday. And we are then going to have the election open for 3 weeks. It will close on November 6th. We will then alert the chair of the results as well as the municipalities. And then we will formally announce and seat the members at the annual meeting on November 14th. And we will get all of that information out, posted on the website and in an email communication to the municipal contacts as well as the chief executive officials. Any questions?
Any questions for Eric? John Romano.
Eric, are you gonna be sending out a link for the candidates form to all the members?
Yes, we can do that. Dave, can you do that? And it's posted on the website right now. It's on the calendar.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Pardon me.
And then
Eric
Eric,
makes the request.
oh, I'm sorry, Dave Kosis.
Yes, just to confirm, Eric, you said the voting would be live or available between October 17th and November 6th. Is that right?
Between, we're hoping to get this out by Monday, the 15th, so between October 15th and November 6th.
So voting could start before the candidates forum?
It technically, the link will be live, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And then I just have a question, Eric, that I should remember but don't. The at-large city seat. All MAPC communities vote for the city seat or just cities? I think it's all of them, right?
All of the municipalities in the region vote for the at-large seats.
Okay.
So both the at-large city and at-large town seats, and then just the sub-regional municipalities vote for those seats.
Excellent. That's what I thought it was. Thanks, Eric. Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Eric.
Great. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the operations plan review. David Hong and Aaron McGuire.
Yes, thank you. My name is Dave Hong, Manager of MPO Activities and staff to the MPO. And today, along with my colleague, Aaron McGuire, Transportation Planner at the MPO, we will provide an overview of the MPO's operations plan, including what it is, a summary of revisions, and a walkthrough of the approach that the MOU Update Committee took to bring you this draft for review. Afterwards, we will invite you to provide any feedback you may have over the next week. As we move down 2 slides, please. There are 2 major governing documents that the MOU Update Committee was tasked with revising this year. The Memorandum of Understanding is the formal agreement between all board members that illustrates who we are as an organization, what we are here to do, i.e. member roles and responsibilities, and why the MPO exists. To complement this high-level document then, there is also a more detailed operations plan that spells out what the agreement entails from a tactical angle, as well as the process by which the MPO's commitments are fulfilled. For example, it talks about the elections process, which will be happening this month, standing up an ad hoc committee, which originally the MOU Update Committee was, how board meetings are to be conducted, and importantly, how information is shared between agencies to enable meaningful work. Next slide, please. In a moment, Aaron will provide a summary of the revisions made to date for your ease of consumption, since the operations plan is 40 pages long, admittedly. I would like to acknowledge beforehand and give full credit to all the 10 members of the MOU Update Committee who reviewed staff changes made up upon the previous ad hoc committee's recommendations, and who also reviewed and provided feedback on updates collaboratively made between the Metro West Regional Transit Authority, the Cape Ann Transportation Authority, the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority, and the Massachusetts Department of Transportation. And with that, I will pass it to Aaron.
Thank you and good morning, everyone. I will be keeping my camera off due to some internet issues, so please bear with me. So today I'm going to be walking through some high-level changes that have been made to the draft operations plan document. It is now posted to the calendar with the key changes highlighted for ease of viewing. Similar to some past presentations, I'm going to walk through a few categories of revisions, which fall into 4 main groups, those being content that has been relocated from the Memorandum of Understanding, some text-based clarifications, added information on board member development, and added specificity on the process for agency information sharing. So many items that have been relocated into this document from the MOU were relocated to allow for information to be more regularly updated than it would have been in its original home. As David had mentioned, this allows for processes to be outlined in greater detail and edited to reflect current processes. Some examples of these include section 3.3, which now has additional content discussing meeting location requirements, Section 8.2 has references to the TIP universe of projects and the first tier list of unfunded priority projects. And Section 8.4 now contains details on MARPA funding distributions, the Accelerated Bridge Program, and the Road and Bridge Program. There were also some instances throughout the operations plan where text has been edited and revised for clarity and simplicity purposes. Some examples of this include updating references to the most recent MOU and operations plan, adding references to the additional board seat for the region's RTAs, and finally, some small text clarifications in the advisory council section, which indicates staff administering the group and pointing to operational details within their governance documents. Next are details related to board member education and development. Section 3.4 contains new details that outline potential opportunities for this development, including webinars, online resources, peer exchanges, and conference attendance. And then staff has also worked closely with MassDOT, the MBTA, MWRTA, and CADA staff to identify appropriate language to outline project information sharing processes for the projects within the TIP. Details here include how early MPO staff will reach out for information on board items requiring a vote. Other details include how early relevant agencies should share materials back, expectations of agencies and logistics when it comes to bringing quarterly readiness updates to the board, and roles and responsibilities of each of these agencies in timely information sharing. And I will now pass it back to David.
Thank you, Erin. With that, we invite you to ask questions or provide comments on or offline by next Wednesday, October the 16th, so that staff can review and address them for incorporation. We will then, on October the 24th MPO, request a motion to approve the operations plan. Thank you, and with that, we welcome your questions, and I turn back to the chair.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions for David or Aaron at this time? Seeing and hearing none, please do provide them with any comments you can by the 16th or questions. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Next item on the agenda is Federal Highway Grant Recipient Update by Ken Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and hi again, everyone. I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking about where we are in the region in terms of the discretionary grant awards. I'm just going to spend the first couple of slides just as a little bit of background, probably stuff that you already know. Next slide, please. So as you know, the reauthorization for highway transportation occurred 2022. It's called the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. It funds programs for 5 years and more than a dozen new programs, including a couple of new formula funding programs, as well as many discretionary programs, which is going to be what I'm going to be talking about today. But these discretionary programs give many more opportunities for local governments and other non-traditional entities to access the new funding. You know, we're 3 years into this 5-year program now. We're actually starting the fourth year, fiscal year 2020, federal fiscal year 2025. Next slide, please. This is just shows some of the discretionary programs. There are about 40 different programs available, and this shows who is eligible to apply. And as you can see, MPOs, municipalities, tribal governments, other special authorities and territories, federal lands management agencies can apply, and the state can apply, except for Safe Streets for Roads and Roads for All. The state is not an eligible applicant for that program. Next slide, please. So if you do apply for one of these programs and you are awarded a grant, remember these are reimbursement grants. We don't just hand you a check. You have to, you do the work, you pay your contractor or consultant, depending on what kind of work it is, and we reimburse you 80%, typically. There are different matching requirements for different programs, but that is a typical matching requirement. And it doesn't have, your matching requirement does not have to be cash. It can be in-kind services. So to the extent that you're spending staff time or you have other kinds of expenses that you're paying for, that can be used as an in-kind match for the grant. And there are typically two different ways you can go about this. You can have a grant agreement directly with us. You will be the direct recipient, and you are responsible for conforming to all federal requirements, and you will invoice us, and we will reimburse you directly. Or you can go through MassDOT. MassDOT can be a pass-through, and then there are some benefits to that. Again, just a reminder: Safe Streets for All. The applicant has to be a direct recipient. There is no option for MassDOT to be a pass-through on that one. Next slide. Oh, just one more thing. I want to distinguish between discretionary grants and earmarks. When we did the TIP amendment earlier today, there was a discussion of some reprogramming some earmarks that didn't get obligated, things like that. There are earmarks came back 3 years ago. So every year there are, I want to say 15 or 20 earmarks that get put into the Annual Appropriations Act. Those are required to be passed through MassDOT. MassDOT is the recipient of earmark funding, and they can municipalities can be subrecipients, or MassDOT can actually do the work and implement the project. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so if you are a direct recipient and you do get a grant, there are federal requirements. And even if you are the subrecipient through MassDOT, you still have to conform to these federal requirements. Although MassDOT can be helpful, they know a lot about these things. They have to do it on all of their projects. So there are, I did mention the matching funds. Projects have to be programmed on the TIP and STIP. You have to conform to the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA. So for projects where there's actual, you're actually touching the built environment, so meaning there's actually construction, even if it's temporary, there does have to be a NEPA clearance on that. We can be helpful with that. You have to conform to what's called the Uniform Act. So if there is any, you are obtaining right-of-way, you have to do that in conformance with federal requirements. Then there's all kinds of other things. Davis-Bacon, Buy America can be significant depending on what kind of project it is. For example, electric vehicle charging stations. There's currently a temporary waiver, but that may go away soon. So Buy America will apply to vehicle chargers, and then all kinds of other stuff, DBE, Title VI, ADA requirements, and the Brooks Act, which relates to procuring design firms. We're not, I'm showing you this. I'm not trying to scare anybody. I don't want to inhibit anybody from applying for a discretionary grant. We want good projects. We want people to apply, but you just need to be aware that there are requirements. We just don't hand you a blank check. Next slide, please. Okay, so here are so far in the Boston region, remember we're 3 years in, these are the Safe Streets for All grants that have been awarded in the Boston region. As you can see on that first column, there are different types. So earlier in the process, we awarded grants to develop action plans. The Boston MPO was the recipient of one of those, as were 4 communities. And the city of Boston got an implementation grant very early on. And now you can see there are now something called supplemental planning. The SUP stands for supplemental planning, and the demo stands for demonstration grants. Demonstration projects are those where, just like in that first one, it says temporary quick build treatments on Broadway. So demonstration grants are those for temporary pilot projects to test things out, whether it's bollards or temporary bus stops or whatever. That's what those demonstrations, and you can apply for combinations of these things. So if you look at, farther down the list, you can see Quincy got a grant to do planning, supplemental planning, and demonstration all in one. So it's either you can do that or you can do implementation. There are two paths for Safe Streets for All grants. Next slide, please. These are the non-Safe Streets for All discretionary grants that have been awarded in the region so far. I also included two statewide grants just for your information. So at the bottom is sort of the key as to what those things mean. I'm not sure who comes up with them, but we must have some marketing person somewhere that comes up with these acronyms. But I'll just point out a couple. The city of Boston just got a charging and fueling infrastructure one to build 300 charging ports in the city of Boston. There are we've discussed earlier the $335 million neighborhood access and equity grant for the Alston project. And then you can see there are various other ones. I should point out also that these are only ones that are being overseen by Federal Highway. There are grants, direct recipient grants, discretionary grants that are overseen by FTA or FRA or any other operating agency of the US DOT. So for example, there's a RAISE grant for building a commuter rail station in Salem. There's an Everett Lower Broadway Transit Priority grant. And most recently, the MBTA got a grant of over $400 million to work on North Station and the Draw One Bridge project in that area. Those are being overseen by Federal Transit Administration. So with that, happy to take any questions you may have. Next slide, please. If you want more information on any of these grants, probably more information than you want, just go to our website, federalhighway.dot.gov, or just Google FHWA BIL, and it gets you to the same place. And there's all information about all the different grants. So I'll be very happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Ken. Eric Barrasso.
Ken, not sure if you can speak to this, but one thing we've seen with some of the grant programs is for grants that were submitted and scored, like high, or I forget what the different scoring criteria are, but there's sort of like a low, medium, and high. Things that were scored high, they're letting folks resubmit without competing for new applications. Do you know if that is going to continue? Any thinking internally about just letting people kind of resubmit what's already been submitted if it's scored high?
That's a good question. I know that's happened with some Safe Streets for All and charging and fueling infrastructure programs. There are 40, like I mentioned, there are about 40 different programs. They each have their own requirements and guidelines. It's really hard for us. It's hard to keep up with, on our part. Actually, different program offices and Federal Highway oversee different projects, and they have perhaps their own way of doing things. I think part of that was, earlier in the earlier years, there were many more projects submitted than there was money to award, and so good projects did not get awarded maybe in the first and second round. So they did, I think, for charging and fueling infrastructure, they actually set aside money in the second year for projects from the first year that didn't get funding in that first round. But every program is different. I would suggest that you look at the NOFO, the Notice of Funding Opportunity for each grant, and may say something about eligibility of past applications or not. I mean, if you have questions about particular programs, let me know and I can see if I can, find out. But every program is different. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Ken. Other questions? Jinro.
Another question, just a note that was actually the case for our EV charging grant, where we applied 1 year, didn't receive it, and we're told by the feds, this was a great application, just resubmit it. So I do want to encourage folks to, in similar situations, to do that.
Right, and also each NOFO has the criteria, should have the criteria that will be used to make decisions on, funding award decisions, and so you should take a good look at what the criteria are and make sure your application, addresses the criteria that are included in the notice of funding opportunity.
Other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Ken.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And that brings us to member items. Are there any? Seeing and hearing none, can we get a motion to adjourn and second? And please state your name for the record. Eric Barassa.
Eric Barassa, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Jinro.
I will second that motion.
Thank you very much. Motion has been made and seconded. We are adjourned. I'll see everybody in 2 weeks. Bye, guys.